Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jenrette Thomas.
Welcome everyone to the Esquire Coaching Radio Show. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. As you know, Esquire Coaching is a national coaching and consulting firm that is dedicated to helping lawyers achieve extraordinary whole life success. To that end, we discuss the full range of topics from business building to getting a job to work-life balance and everything in between. Today we have a very special guest who's going to talk to us about gaining business without selling. In this episode, Jennifer Lynn Robinson will talk about how you can build your business through meaningful connections and lasting relationships. Jennifer firmly believes in the saying that people do business with people that they like and trust. And she also believes that being a giver and a connector brings forth good karma, so you don't have to keep a tab on what you've done for others. Jennifer is the CEO and founder of Purposeful Networking. She offers one-on-one consulting with individuals to maximize their relationships and sales through a comprehensive and personalized networking plan. Jennifer holds certifications in event planning, nonprofit management, and conflict resolution. She received her Bachelor of Arts from Haverford College and her law degree from Villanova School of Law. Jennifer is currently involved with numerous nonprofit organizations. In fact, she sits on several boards, including the Executive Alumni Board of Haverford College and MusicWorks. Jennifer serves as co-president for the Mainline Professional Development Group and the Professional Women's Business Network, PWBN, of the Mainline. She's also an ambassador for the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. She lives in Bala Cynwyd, which is a suburb of the Philadelphia area, with her husband, Walter, and their 3 rescue dogs, Buster, Braxton, and Morgan. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I got to tell you, listeners, you know, I met Jennifer virtually, actually, I guess a few months ago, and just absolutely loved her energy, love her enthusiasm, and I know you guys are going to get so much great content from what she has to share today. Before I begin with the questions, I want to remind our listeners that if you want to ask Jennifer a question, there will be time at the end of the call. You simply have to call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the queue. I'll repeat that number at the end. All right, Jennifer. So here's one of the first questions that come to mind. You know, people give out a lot of cards at networking events, but then it seems like nothing comes out of it. And they often think that they're doing something wrong. What would you say to somebody that basically has that situation?
First of all, I would say that people who go to networking events with a stack of cards and at the end they've given out all the cards and feel that was a successful event, they should know that that was not a success, that was a failure. So that's the first thing I would say. I would say, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That's so clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think what people need to realize at networking events is whether it's a big room, you know, that's a couple hundred people, or it's a smaller group, you really should go with a goal in mind of maybe meeting 3 to 5 people and having meaningful conversations with those people. It's not an opportunity to try to make your way around the room and just hand out cards and have a 30-second conversation. It's more of an opportunity to get to know a few people on a little bit of a deeper level and understand what they do and tell them what you do. And, you know, it's not unlike a first date or a job interview. This is an opportunity for a first impression, sort of a jump-off point where you're hoping you'll establish a connection and form a relationship from there. It's not the time to sell your services, and it's not the time to navigate the room and just hand out a stack of cards. So I think, you know, I think a lot of people go to events and feel that something should occur right away after the event, and then they get discouraged. And I would say that's absolutely not the case. It's really just an opportunity to meet somebody and make a connection. And then what you do afterwards, you know, will really determine what comes of that. It's not really what happens at the event itself.
Oh, I love that. So one thing that, people often ask, especially the attorneys that we come across, is whether they should renew the membership that they belong to in a networking or an industry group that they may have attended last year but hasn't actually netted them any clients. What's your advice for a person in that situation?
I would say, look at the groups that you do, and first thing is, do you like the group? Do you like the people in the group? And or are you getting substantive content from the group? So, there could be a number of reasons you join a group. I mean, obviously, we're all looking to get business, but we're also looking to develop relationships, and that could be on a personal or professional level or both. And it could also be for good content. You might go to different events because they're industry-related events, and you want to hear speakers and build your expertise and meet people in your industry. So take a step back and look at why you're joining these groups. And if you like the people and you like the content, I would say stick with it, whether you are getting business from it or not. I mean, obviously there's a point where you want to cut your losses. So if you're no longer enjoying the people or the content and you're not getting business from it, that is the time to leave the group. You only have limited time and resources, and, at some point you have to do your work, and you can't always be out there networking and marketing yourself. So you do have to take time to reassess what you're doing periodically. On the flip side of that, I would say, some people join a group and they think almost right away they should be getting business from it. Getting business from a group could take 6 months, it could take a year, it could take 2 years. And it really depends how much you want to devote to it. I personally think that the more time you devote to the group and the more relationships you develop within that group, the more likely it is that you'll start to get referrals and, people will know you and they'll understand what you do and how to refer you and what value you bring, and that will only work out to your favor. But some people think that after a short amount of time, people should just start referring them, and that's really not what happens in real life. Just to take an example, I mean, somebody like a realtor, I go to a ton of networking events, as I know a lot of us do. There's a ton of realtors at events, and, they maybe all have different niches, and it's up to them to kind of explain to people what those niches are. However, I mean, think about it from your own perspective. If you were selling your house, you would not open the yellow pages and find somebody to sell your house. You would either know somebody that you trust already, or you would ask around to your family and friends to find somebody they know or trust and sell your house. So it's not the kind of thing where, you're going to automatically go to a group and just because somebody's a realtor of your group, you're going to use them or recommend them. You have to get to know them over time. It's a position where you have to trust the person and you have to understand that they're going to be the right fit for you. So that is all something that takes time, and that's not something that's going to happen in a short time, and I think people have to look at the big picture with some of these groups.
I'm so glad that you emphasized that it takes a while. When you said anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, possibly even longer, to net business from a networking group. And what I want to emphasize is especially for associates in larger firms, most of the time associates are just putting their nose to the grindstone. They're just trying to meet their billable hour requirement. But really, if you can break away and start finding at least a few key networking groups and stick with them, by the time you are on track or up for partnership, you probably would have really cultivated such a great, solid relationship base. Wouldn't you agree with that, Jennifer?
I would absolutely agree, and particularly, I mean, I've been a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, and I work with a lot of lawyers, and I would say the key thing that you said is joining a few groups. It's not really the time to join 10 groups if you're trying to meet billable hours, and you're not going to be able to be, an effective part of those groups, and you're not going to be able to make most of the meetings. It's just not going to be a good use of your time or your money. So I think joining a few key groups is really the key part of what you've said, and really making a difference in those groups, getting to know the people. And really you should be giving the emphasis to these groups as an attorney or in any profession that you give to your clients or your billable hours or whatever time you spend on your work. Find a way to build that into, your day or your week or your month, a certain amount of time for networking, and make that a priority, especially if you're in an associate position or another job where you have to build your book of business. It has to be a priority.
I totally agree. So how does a person go about and build relationships with people that they meet at networking groups?
So, as I said before, I think really when you meet people at networking groups or events, it's really just a first impression kind of initial meeting, not unlike a first date or a job interview or something of that nature. So it's really up to you to figure out how you're going to continue to build that relationship. And some of the tips I give people in any profession are follow up with people, I would say within 24 to 72 hours after an event if possible. Now, of course, we all get busy. I'm guilty of this myself. It does not always work out. But, think about the fact that when you meet people, they're busy, you're busy, they might attend a bunch of events, and after a few days, you may not remember, where you met the person on your business card and vice versa. So I think the sooner the better to get in touch with them. Obviously, you can send an email, and that's fine. But think about all the emails that we as busy professionals get in a day. And I would say a better way would be to find a way to distinguish yourself that does not involve an email. So that could involve a phone call. That could involve a personal note. Those kinds of things stand out more to people and will make you more memorable in their day of, the several hundred emails that they get. I would say if you can, designate time to do one-on-ones with people. So that could be coffee, that could be lunch, whatever your time allows. That could even be scheduling a phone call with people just to get to know them and their services better. You could even just do a 15-minute or 20-minute phone call. Whatever time that you have, just understand more of what they do and how you might be able to connect them with people in your network and help them and vice versa. Until you really understand that and people understand what you do, they don't understand how to help you. You have to explain that. You have to show what you're looking for and understand what people are looking for. So it's really important, whether it's in person or on the phone, to do those one-on-ones and get to know people within your groups or that you meet at events. And the other big part of this is to stay in touch. So this can involve a number of things. It can involve emails to see how people are doing. It can involve maybe forwarding somebody an article that you think might be of interest to them. Maybe you met them at an event and they mentioned that they like running, so maybe you see something about an upcoming race that you think they might be interested in participating in. It doesn't take that long to forward somebody, an article, maybe 30 seconds, a minute of your time. And it just shows somebody that you were thinking about them. And it's just an easy way to stay in touch. So I recommend things like that, or maybe sending somebody a card, inviting them to an event. Try to do things that help you follow up and maintain the relationship, because it's all about building and maintaining the relationship. Some other things I would suggest is also try to help promote what your colleagues are doing, people that you meet and you want to build relationships with. It could be as easy as, if you're doing an event, maybe post it on social media, whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook, and help them to, build the following for their event or whatever they're doing. If they've received a job promotion, congratulate them. Try to help promote your colleagues and friends, and they will in turn do the same for you. So I think that's also really important. And I think the last part of that I would say is find ways to try to partner and collaborate with people. And I think one thing I would say that I personally believe is that even people in your own industry that you feel are competitors, I don't think you should look at people in that way. I think that any way that you find where you can collaborate and partner with people, even in your own industry, is a positive thing. I mean, I do this all the time, and I collaborate with people, and I do seminars together, and I encourage other people to do the same. Even if it's as simple as, for example, if you're an associate and you have your own practice, you might want to have a group of people that are on a list that you can refer cases to that you may have a conflict with, or maybe you have too much work, or whatever it may be. And you don't want those people to be random that you find, in a legal directory. You want to understand, their reputation and what they do, and you want to make sure that they're quality people that you're able to refer potential clients to. So those are all reasons to kind of befriend people who are competitors and in your industry and find ways to partner with them.
Oh, there's so much great content here. I'm actually taking notes myself. So okay, let's get to some of the nitty-gritty. You're at a networking event. How do you start a conversation?
I think a lot of people get caught up in this because they think, they need something kind of earth-shattering to approach somebody at a networking event. Really, it should be so simple. I think people just overcomplicate it. I mean, anytime you're somewhere in your daily day, you might be in line at the grocery store or, in line at Starbucks or whatever it is, and anything that you would say to a person to make conversation there is pretty much appropriate to make conversation at a networking event. So, go up to people, say hi, and just find points of commonality. I think that's the easiest way to engage people and get them to open up. So what do I mean by commonality? It could be as simple as the weather. It could be, how the Eagles game went yesterday. It could be the upcoming snowstorm that's, coming to your area. Find points of commonality. A lot of people like to discuss, let's say, their kids, or for me it's dogs, because, I have my two rescue dogs, and I will always talk about them, till somebody tells me to stop, basically. But I think, at networking events, just try to find points of commonality with people, and that usually will open up a discussion. And, definitely that discussion can and should lead at some point to what people do. But, going up to somebody and just saying, hello, my name is Tom, what do you do? Think about how you feel when people do that at events and they don't make any effort to really get to know you as a person. You probably don't like that, and, you don't want to be that person. So I think going up to people, finding, points of commonality, it's really about the connection. It's not about, trying to explain all of your services at that initial meeting. So it's fine if you never end up discussing your work and you just discuss, the fact that you both like, basket weaving. That's fine, because they'll remember that that's what you discussed. It's not as important in that initial meeting to make sure, that you understand what you do with work, and they understand all of what you do. If you can include that, great, but it's really more about making the connection. If you don't know anybody at a networking event, there's a couple ways to handle that. If it's your first time at a group or an event with an organization, you can talk to the people at registration and ask, tell them, it's my first time here. I don't know anybody. Could you introduce me to somebody? Or, if you feel comfortable, even approach a few people at the event and be honest. Tell them, it's my first time here. I don't know anybody. I would love to meet a few people here. Would you mind introducing me? People are very receptive to that. So, that'll also help you start conversation. So I think, there's different things you can do, but, don't overcomplicate it is what I would say.
That's great advice. Now, what about the flip side? So we've all been there where you're talking to somebody and then all of a sudden it's going on, and you really want to extricate yourself gracefully from that conversation. What advice do you have there?
Yes, sometimes that can be very difficult, even for me. So, yes, I think, there's a few ways to handle that, and one way is to be completely honest. When I say completely honest, there's a caveat. You shouldn't say, wow, you're so boring. I just find a way out of this conversation. I would not recommend that. But when I say be honest, sometimes it's okay. If you're at an event and let's say you have an hour for networking, to say something like, you know what, it was really nice meeting you. But, I'd like to find somebody else, not find somebody else, I guess that's a good way to put it. But, I see somebody else I would like to talk to and say hi, or, I know there was another person I wanted to meet at this event, so I'm going to, ask registration if they know who they are and I can find time to meet them. It's not a bad idea to just be honest and gracefully exit the conversation by saying, there's something else that you would like to do. Not necessarily you're so boring I want to get away, but just doing it gracefully. I think, if you really can't do it gracefully, this is a little bit of a cop-out, but, one way to extricate yourself is just to say, you know what, I'm going to excuse myself, I have to go to the ladies' room, or I'm going to grab a glass of wine, or, I want to get a snack, or whatever it is that can get you away from that conversation is not a bad idea. But, if you can do it gracefully, obviously do it gracefully. If you can't, then use whatever excuse would be polite that comes to mind.
That's awesome. I think the honesty piece, I would have never guessed that, that you can honestly just say, hey, I'm looking to meet somebody in particular and just be upfront about that. I think that is really great. Now, what about, the bar, there's a lot of large conferences for the bar associations, different affinity groups, and then sometimes within your own industry there are large industry conferences. How can a person really take advantage of those types of events?
There's a few basic tips I would give with this. A lot of times with these bigger conferences, you pay a great deal to attend. Sometimes you're members of these groups that have the big conferences. So I would say to the extent it's available, do your research before you attend the conference. A lot of times that will involve getting on the website and looking at who else is attending the event. And maybe, you know, any research you can do on that. You may see that of these people attending, there's maybe a couple people that you would really love to engage. So look them up, you know, do your research, look up their LinkedIn profile, look up their company websites, you know, look up anything you can about them before the event, and then make a point of meeting them at the event. And that goes back to, you know, what I was saying earlier. If there's a picture and you're lucky enough to go to the event and you can see who they are and go up and introduce yourself, great. If you can't, you know, approach somebody else at the event, whether that's someone at registration or another attendee. Ask them if they know the person you're trying to meet and make a point of meeting them that way. But do not let the time go by, you know, that you've been at the event and not meet your target people. So do whatever research you can to see who's attending. And also, you know, get a sense of the agenda and see when the breaks are going to be. You know, a lot of people will take the break opportunity, you know, to go to the restroom or maybe make a call back to the office. I think that's a mistake. It may sound silly, but myself, I mean, I would actually prefer to use the time maybe during a speaker, you know, take a few minutes during a speaker to go to the ladies' room or call my office, and then take a break time as time to actually meet people. So, you know, over a break at a big conference, people will congregate, of course, around the food and coffee and things of that nature. That's where you should congregate as well. That's the best place to meet people. And you're there to meet people in your industry, whether it's target people or just new people or potential clients. So really, that's the time to take advantage. A lot of times at legal conferences, at the end of the day, there'll be a reception. Maybe they'll have a whole day of programming or a half day of programming, then there'll be a reception. I have noticed that a lot of people skip the reception. You know, they've had a long day. Maybe the reception goes from 4 to 5 o'clock, or 5 to 6 o'clock. They have other commitments. To the extent that you're able to, go to the reception. You pay to be at the event, and that's really the best time to network. So if you can accommodate it, you know, if you can accommodate childcare or, you know, conflicts or whatever you have, that's really the time you want to be there. That's not the part of the conference you want to be missing. So those are some tips I would say. I would also say, you know, for some of these conferences you have to travel to, again, do your research, and if there's particular people that you want to engage with and maybe there's not time during the event, see if you can hook up with them at night. You know, if it's, let's say it's a 2-3 day conference, maybe see if you can meet them for a drink after, you know, the first day of the seminar, or, you know, a snack or coffee or whatever it is, so that you guys can hook up. You know, it could be early breakfast before one of the days of the conference. But make a point of utilizing that time. If you've already traveled and paid for the conference, I think make the most of that time. The last tip I would say with that is a friend of mine recommended this book called Never Eat Alone, and it's definitely become one of my networking Bibles. One of the things that, I know it sounds silly, but one of the things the author says in that book with regard to conferences is to try to kind of make your own event, mini event within the conferences. So it's not a bad idea to maybe, if there's not a dinner, let's say, you know, between the first and second day of the event, to maybe pull a few people together, a few key people that either you think would connect well or that you want to spend time getting to know better. Even just going out for pizza or something, you know, if you're already there in another state, you know, attending a conference, use the time to either connect people, get to know people better, or both. And if there's not an event that they've scheduled for you, like a reception or a dinner or something, make your own event. It doesn't have to be fancy, just, you know, make it happen.
These are such great tips. Like, you know, I'm loving it. I want to just remind our callers, if you have a question for Jennifer, now's the time to call in, 347-838-8719. That's 347-838-8719, and press 1 to get in the queue. This is amazing. Okay, so, you know, you just gave a great tip about essentially holding your own mini event within a conference, but what do you think about attorneys, especially like solos or small firm partners, or even the larger firm partners, holding their own events to try and increase their contacts in business? What's your advice on holding your own events?
I think this is so important, and I think even myself, you know, leaving law and starting my own business, I think it took me some time to realize myself that you have to try to make your own opportunities. You know, nobody, unless you have, you know, the budget for expensive, you know, marketing or PR, which a lot of us don't, and I certainly don't, I think you have to hold your own events, seminars, whatever it is that will help you get the word out about your brand and your services and what you do. That could involve, calling different, places where you can teach, where you can hold a seminar or sponsor something. Those are great, and, picking up the phone goes a long way. Don't wait for those opportunities to come to you. So, if there's a particular place you want to teach or, a particular place you want to give a seminar, call them up. The worst they can do is say no, and you haven't lost anything. But even just holding your own events, I think for myself, I'm starting to do this a lot more. I'm realizing that, I don't have to wait for these opportunities to come to me. I can just schedule my own seminars and help get the word out about, what I'm doing and my own expertise. So I think it's really important to do that for yourself. And I think sometimes professionals, whether it's, legal associates or in any field, don't really want to hear this, but I think it's important to hear that a lot of the time, or at least some of the time, these may be unpaid events, and that's fine. But it's really about targeting the events to the audience that you want as clients. So I wouldn't say, if you're asked to do a free talk or a free seminar or free office hours or whatever it is, that you take, that you take every opportunity. But at the same time, it's fine to do things unpaid. It's going to help you lead to more business. So if you get a call to do something that's unpaid, think about who the audience will be and if it's worthwhile to you. And if it is, then do it, even if you're not getting paid for it and it takes you away from your work, especially if you're starting out. It's really about a hustle. So, you really have to be out there all the time. And you really have to be explaining to people why they should come to you, what your expertise and value is. And if you have to do it unpaid, which a lot of us do, then do it.
Wow. And in fact, I really think that you should anticipate it. You should expect, especially in the beginning, that you are going to do a lot of things unpaid, whether it's an unpaid speaking engagement or you holding your own event or seminar. It is about building that trust, that credibility, that expertise, really being seen as that. So I think that's spot on. Now, what about advertising? Do you think that our attorneys should be advertising in expensive publications or some of those, the equivalent of cold calling, but, when you actually send letters out to people, just letting them know about your services? What are your thoughts on those types of activities?
I don't think everyone would agree with me, but my personal opinion is it's generally speaking a waste of time.
I so agree with you. Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I would say my caveat to that is, as somebody who's starting their own practice, an associate, if you just opened a new office or maybe you just made partner or something is going on, not a bad idea to send something out to your own network of, family, friends, and colleagues and let them know, especially if it's a new office. Guess what? I started my own practice. If you can make any referrals to me or anything of that nature, that would be great. You have to let people know what's going on. But beyond that, I really think unless you're with a big firm and they're going to pay for those advertisements out of their own budget, it's not worth your time and resources. Some of these publications are extremely expensive to put an ad in. And, unfortunately, there's a ton of lawyers out there, so people are not going to come to you because they see an ad in the paper. It goes back to what I was saying about realtors or, a ton of professionals. This would be applicable to, where basically unless they know you and they trust you and they understand, who you are and what you do, they're not going to come to you. It's a very personal thing to go to an attorney. So putting an ad in is not really going to generate what you're hoping it'll generate. And think about all the junk mail that we get on a daily basis. When I get letters myself, I hate to say it, from people that are what I would say are called random professionals that I've had no interaction with, they go right in the trash. I just don't have time for that. That may sound harsh, but I think, people have to understand that. I don't think I'm in the minority by saying that. So I think it's much more valuable to do the kinds of things that I've already discussed. Have the one-on-ones, get to know people, do your own seminars, the word out in your own way. And yes, that's, that has a value. You're taking your time. So it's not that there's not a cost to that. But, I would say that's still, in a sense, free marketing. And to the extent you have time, you can do as much of it as you have time for without just putting an ad. It's a lot of money and hoping for the best.
This is great. We are out of time, believe it or not. So, Jennifer, can you tell our listeners how they can reach you if they have questions or want to work with you?
Sure. You can go to my website, which is www.purposefulnetworking, all one word, .com. And from there, I have a consultation form you can fill out. You can also find me on Facebook. I have a Purposeful Networking business page on Facebook. I'm, of course, on LinkedIn. My email and everything is listed there. I also do a blog, so I'd love you to look at my blog. It's on various networking topics. I try to keep it fun most of the time. So please check it out. I'm also on Twitter. My handle on Twitter is RUNetworks, and I'd love you to follow me. So please get in touch if you have any questions or, you might need my services.
Absolutely. As you can all tell, she's a real expert. And if you want even more great tips, I'm honored to say that Jennifer is one of the co-authors in our upcoming book, The Happy Law Practice, which will be coming out March 25th. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Let's keep this conversation about networking going. Join us on our Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Tell us what your feedback is, and you can get all of our handles and contacts through our website, www.aspirecoaching.com. Next week, we are going to talk about using social media to really build up your business. Until then, see you.